Hi everybody, Penny here. Welcome to my kitchen. So today we are going to do my version of a Dutch apple pie. And all the Dutch apple pie is one that does not have a pie crust over the top. It has like a crumble over the top, like similar to an apple crisp. And actually this topping is from my version of an apple crisp. So without further ado, let's get to it. So all I have in the house normally are Royal Gala apples. Those are the ones I like to eat. So this is the pie plate. It's just a shallow 9-inch pie plate. And then the bowl of apples, as you can see, is not quite full, but it's probably going to have a little bit of a mound in the pie plate. And you want a little bit of a mound because as the apples cook, they're going to shrink down. Okay, so as Barry was peeling the apples and I was slicing the apples, because this arm and hand is still not great for peeling stuff, he did a wonderful job. And as I was doing them, every couple of apples, I just gave a quick little squirt of some refrigerated lemon juice. And that keeps them from going brown. So that's worked perfectly. Now we're going to add our flavoring to the apples for the pie. And in this bowl, I have a 1/4 cup of Splenda and a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. You could go ahead and put in a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, not a problem, if sugar is not a concern for you. I also have a 1/4 cup of flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. So that's what's going to go in the flavoring for the apples. So we're just going to give that a little bit of a whisk. Make sure it's all thoroughly combined. Break up that little bit of brown sugar there. And the flour acts as a thickener so that you don't have, hopefully we won't have, a runny apple pie. Most apple pies normally call for like a Granny Smith apple or a Golden Delicious apple. But to be honest, I've never ever gone to the grocery store specifically to buy apples for an apple pie. I just use whatever I have in the house, which is normally, oh, thanks Barry, which is normally the Royal Gala. So we're going to sprinkle this over the apples. And then we're going to give it a good stir. Make sure all our apples are coated. There we go. That looks grand. All coated. Now, if I was going to put a pastry on this pie, a pastry top, I would also put in at least a couple of tablespoons of really finely chopped up, cubed up butter. But because we're putting a topping on it, and there's going to be butter in the topping, I'm not going to do that. So step number 1, of course, is your pie crust. I never make pie crust. I always buy the pie crust, the ones that are already rolled up and ready to go. I don't know why. I like these. They're relatively inexpensive. They're a great time saver, so I just don't worry about it. But if you want to make your own pie crust, go for it. I'm sure I will someday, but not today. Okay, so we're going to push it into the edges, just gently. You don't want it to stick or anything, but just gently. And then flatten it down on the sides a little bit. Now, at this point, you can see how some of the edges are kind of hanging off a little. So what we're going to do is just gently fold them under so that they more or less come to the edge of the pie. I mean, this is a rustic homemade pie. Certainly doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. It's a little difficult for my numb fingers. But we'll get her done. So you just tuck it under. There we go. And that's grand. So at this point, you can take a fork and just flatten it around very gently. Or you can take 2 fingers and a finger, your thumb and your finger, sorry, and your finger, and you're just gonna do a little pokey in like that. So put your finger and your thumb on the pie crust, and then with your other finger, make a little point. So where your pointer finger was, you now put your thumb and make a little point. So where your pointer finger was, you make a little point. And you do that all the way around. It's not going to be perfect. This isn't a factory pie. Not to worry. It's all good. You're just creating a little edge. Some are going to be higher than others because there's more pastry on one side maybe than the other. And that's all good. It's okay. It's still going to taste good. And it's still going to look good, no matter which way you choose to do it. Or you could just leave it like that. That's perfectly acceptable as well. And if you don't want to do this and you want to buy a pie crust, go right ahead. Like one already in the pan, already done, you go right ahead. It's all good. So, oven's preheated to 400. Now we're going to put our apples in our prepared pie crust. And it doesn't have to be pretty, they just have to be in there. Make sure you get any extra flour or sugar that might be in the bowl. There we go. And see, you have a little mound, not a huge one, but you've got a little mound in the middle, which is great. Make sure you got apples on all the edges there. There we go. I think we're good. Okie dokie. Just let me rinse my hands. I'll be right back. Talks amongst yourselves. Okie dokie. So there's the body of the pie. Oh, looks good already. Now we're going to make the crumble topping, which is again what makes it a Dutch apple pie. So the first ingredient that I have is 1 cup of quick cooking oats. I'm going to put that in the food processor. And 3/4 of a cup of walnuts. You could use almonds, you could use whatever nut you particularly like, or you can leave it completely out, totally up to you. But I love the flavor of the walnuts, but in my pie I don't really want to taste like the crunch of the walnut, so I'm going to put that in with my oatmeal. And I keep my walnuts in the freezer. Great big bag from Costco, nice tight container closer there, and put it in the freezer. Lasts for months, and it's all good. So this is going to be a little loud, but we are going to process our quick cooking oats, 1 cup, and 3/4 of a cup of our walnuts until it's very, very, very fine. There we go. Now we're going to put in half a cup of just all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and we're going to add in a half a cup of very cold butter that's put into cubes so that you can spread it around the food processor. And we're going to make a crumble mixture. There we go. Put the cover back on. We're going to pulse this instead of flat out because we want it to make crumbs, but we don't want it to become like one giant ball. Okay, I think we have her. Let's have a look-see. Yep. This is the tricky part. Getting this onto the pie without making a total mess. So, we're just going to take our time. Take that out of there now, since most of it is out already. I'm going to take our time. Oh, skate. And all this butter is going to melt down into the pie. And I'm making a mess, as I always do. This is gonna be so good. Yay! Get back in the boat. Okay, so now you want it to go down to the edges. Make sure all the apples are covered. Push the apples in if need be to make sure they're all covered. Thanks, babe. And he's my executive producer, don't you know? Okay, don't lose any of those good bits on the counter. Okay, oven's preheated to 400 degrees. Gonna put this on a cookie sheet in case it spills over, and it's gonna be in the oven for anywhere between 45 to 50 minutes. So use a little skewer or a fork to see if your apples are nice and tender. If the outside edge starts to get a little too dark, you can take it out for a minute and just wrap it in a little bit of tin foil, and that'll stop your edge from burning. It's gonna be at least 45 minutes, if not an hour, and then it's gotta cool. So when that's done and it cools, we'll be back. Hi everybody, back again. Pie is ready. Okie doke. So when it came out of the oven, it was a bit higher. And I probably should have done what I told you guys to do and put a little bit of tin foil over it, because it is a little browned, but that's okay. It's all good. So let's see, it's still warm. It cut very easily, and you know the first slice never comes out all that pretty, but let's see what we can do. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my goodness gracious. Look at that. Doesn't that look good? Let me grab a fork. Okay. Yay. Oh, it's so nice and crumbly. It's like an apple crisp in a pie shop. All I'm missing is the ice cream. I hope you give it a go. It's really good. Enjoy. Bye.